Hello everyone. What we're doing today is solving polynomials. So we've divided, we've found we've factorized, and so now we're using all of that info to actually solve these polynomials, find the roots of them. So let's have a look at our first little bit. So if we've got a polynomial, you'll hear the words roots, you'll hear the words zeros. We've done all this before with quadratics. If you're finding the roots or the zeros, you're basically finding what x is. We're using null factor law in order to find out what x is. And so now this is putting together everything we've done so far. Find all zeros of p to the x equals x cubed minus 7x plus 6. In other words, let's factorize this so that we can then find the solutions to it. But before we can factorize it, we need to figure out what k is. So what are all the factors of 6? In this case, remember that rule that the constant, k is a factor of the constant. And so what are the factors of this constant? 2 and 3, 6 and 1. And we're going to do the negatives. And so, again, we just pick one. So let's try 2. And so let's do the function of 2. Bada bing, bada boom. Oh my God. We find that 2, or should I say, because there's no remainder, that means k has to equal 2. So now knowing that, pause this and give it a go. If we know that k is 2, let's factorize the polynomial px. And so here's one I've done earlier. And we see that if we divide x minus k, or in this case x minus 2, into polynomial px, we get that. Are we done? Absolutely not, because we see this is a really nice little quadratic, and we can factorize this out really, really nicely. And so what we end up with is x minus 2 brackets x minus 2 brackets x minus 3, x plus 1. So if I'm going to find the zeros, in other words, solve this, this is just a null factor law with 3 brackets. Okay, and so the zeros for this are x has to equal 2, 3, or negative 1. We see this process, it's basically a conglomerate of everything that we've done thus far. Okay, so we've led up to this. Let's try our next one. Have a go at this one. Before we even start it, have a go at this one. Find the roots of x to the power of 4 plus 4x cubed minus 7x squared minus 10x equals 0. Give it a go, press pause. Now if we're going to do this, straight away we see that x is a common factor. And so the function of x, in other words that, is just this multiplied by this cubic. And so if x multiplied by the cubic, what are we going to do with that? Okay, we can't group that in pairs, it's not going to work, and so we have to use our polynomial division. We need to find the factors of this, and then we have to find what k is. K is going to be a factor of that. We're saying the word factor a lot. So I just said what's inside the bracket, let that be px, or polynomial x. And now let's find the factors of minus 10. Out of all of these, the easiest one for me to work with was 2, or the first one that I saw at least. And so I'm going to try the function of 2, and I see that it equals 0. Woo! So that means k equals 2. So if I'm then going to work that out, I'm going to divide this polynomial by x minus 2. So let's see how we do that. Oh, bada bing, bada boom, it works wonderfully. If I divide that by x minus 2, I get this. And therefore, knowing from our original equation that x times this polynomial we just figured out or factorized just then, x times that, I can now rewrite the function of x to be that. And we see that's our polynomial there. Should I say that's our quadratic there that we can factorize further, and therefore it equals that. So if I'm going to find the roots of this equation, I'm just going to use the null factor law to figure out what the roots of this are, and x equals 0, x equals positive 2, negative 5, and negative 1. So this is just a big mashup of everything we've done so far. I hope it helps.